Yes, I'm Batman.
I'm Batman. I'm Batman, Alfred.
I'm Batman.
I am Batman.
I'm Batman.
I'm Batman.
Greetings, Bat Family. Welcome back to Holy BatCast, brought to you by real fans for real movies. Please visit our website, holybatcast.com. It is where you will find everything you need to find when it comes to Holy BatCast. But let's say you're not old school, you don't go to websites. Who goes to websites anymore? So you just want to follow us on social media. You can do that. You can follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, and on YouTube. Just search for Holy BatCast. You will find us on your platform of choice. We are also on Patreon, so if you love the show and you want to support the show, you can do that. You can go to patreon.com/holybatcast. And as always, a big thank you to those of you who do it. It does just make our lives a lot easier, and it makes it easier to make this show. So, big bat hug virtually from afar for being our patrons, because we know you don't have to. So thank you for that. We are part of the Real Fans Podcast Network. So if you want to check out some of the other shows that are part of the network, you can do that at rf4rm.com. And as I teased on the last episode, there's a new show coming, and I thought it would be out by now, but it isn't. So I'm sorry, but please stay tuned. I will have more information very soon, any minute, really, any day. By the time I'm done recording this, it could be out. I don't know. So keep an eye on that. As always, I'm your host, Andy DiGenova, and if you'd like to follow me, you can do that on Twitter or on Instagram. It's just my name, Andy DiGenova. Now, this episode, we are going to be diving headfirst into another animated series, because we wrapped up Batman the Animated Series, and we were like, what next? And we left it up to you fine folks, and you told us you want us to cover Batman Beyond. So guess what? We're going to do it. Do you know why? Because that's how democracy works. Or it's how it's supposed to work. Anyway, joining me, I have not one, but two Bat Brothers. First of all, it's my Bat Brother hanging out in Indiana, enjoying the summer, waking up early, drinking coffee, drinking probably other things. It's Jamie Drewley. Hey, Jamie.
It's too early for this.
But you're the guy who wakes up at 5 a.m. every day, and it's not even 5 a.m. You slept in today until 7 a.m.
That's true. It is Sunday, so yeah. Now you got me feeling guilty for drinking this early in the morning, and I've got like a half a gallon of coffee next to me that so far hasn't kicked in, so it might take me a minute to hit stride this episode.
Well, when I said drinking other things, I just meant like orange juice. What are you talking about?
Founder's Breakfast Stout.
I didn't know they made a breakfast stout. Does it taste like bacon?
No, it tastes like coffee, and a lot of it,
too.
which is a good thing as far as I'm concerned.
Coffee beer. That was like a big thing on the Drew Carey show. Speaking of 90s sitcoms, before we started recording, we were talking about 90s sitcoms. The Drew Carey show, remember they started their own coffee beer company. Anyway, thanks for waking up, Jamie. Good morning.
Yeah, pleasure to be here, kind of.
Start the day. Also joining us from down in the bush.
Double entendre, or?
I just meant like the Australian outback. I don't know what you're talking about.
No, sure.
It's Brendan.
We're going back.
Again.
I thought we were continuing talking about the 90s. No, hey, how you going?
Great.
See, you said that, and now all I can think is Brody and Mallrats going, the guy's an arch effing Bushman.
Good. It is not morning for me. It's 20 to 10 at night, so...
It's crazy how time zones work. I don't
really
understand
is.
any of it. I don't
Really
get
is.
it.
You time travelers just crack me up.
Yeah, our friend Rob Myers over at Everyone Loves the Drake, he was kind enough to have me on to talk about how wonderful Tim Drake is. So, friends, if you guys want to hear some more cool talk, especially about Robin, check out the latest show of that. But the point is he was like, hey, could you, do you want to do this? And I was like, of course I want to do it, but time zones. And he's like, yeah. And so, he's like, you are making me math way too hard to try and get this to happen. And so we worked it out, thank goodness. But yeah, I know, everything's just more complicated. Being on the other side of the world, it's crazy.
Well, I was meant to podcast this morning with our friend Jeremy Lloyd, but someone got tickets to the baseball for their wedding anniversary, so let's try and reschedule that one for during the week.
Baseball?
Yeah.
He ditched you for his wedding anniversary?
Right?
What a
Oh, please leave that in.
It's not okay, Jeremy. It's not okay. Last week Jamie blows us off for his wife, and then Jeremy does the same thing to you.
You know, I heard it in Andy's voice, but in the back of my mind, it was Clegane's voice I heard it in for sure. It was fantastic.
Anyway, so we did finish up Batman the Animated Series recently, 2 episodes ago. I think, yeah, because Jamie ditched us last week.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago.
So 2 weeks ago, and so we, there was a lot of internal debate, and we went back and forth, and I was going to just call it. I was just like, I'm just going to call it, and Jamie, of all people, Jamie Drewley was like, well, what about Batman Beyond? And I was like, you said you wouldn't do Batman Beyond. And he goes, well, the only way I'm going to watch it is if the podcast makes me watch it, so I'm okay with putting it out there as an option. So we did. We left it up to the people. We put it on Twitter. We put a little Twitter poll and said, hey, here are 4 good Batman shows. Tell us what we should cover next. And so the options we gave were Batman 66, Batman Beyond, The Batman, and Batman the Brave and the Bold. And so 489 people voted. I would have liked to have gotten more, but hey, what are you going to do? Coming in last was Batman the Brave and the Bold.
That's surprising.
Which makes me sad. Yeah, it hurts my heart a little bit because I love that show, but came in last with 15% of the votes. And then coming in second to last was Batman 66 with 19%.
The 2 I wanted to do.
Yeah. All of our listeners hate you, Jamie.
Clearly.
Coming in second was The Batman with 26%.
Yeah. I wanted to vote multiple times for that one.
And then number 1, Batman Beyond with 40%.
Let me just say, the results of this poll, it's starting to become a little bit clearer as to how you've had Trump for the last 3 years.
Oh, man.
Way harsh, Ty.
I'm kidding.
Wow.
I'm kidding. You know I'm kidding.
Are you?
Yeah, no, I am. Well, no, of course I am.
See, you kind of are, but kind of aren't.
Well, there's a huge significant difference there. I understand people who like Batman Beyond.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Yeah, so I thought it would be closer because I feel like all 4 of those shows have very strong fan bases. But yeah, it became pretty clear pretty early that Batman Beyond was going to run away with this. And someone said early on, and it made me laugh so hard, where it said, I see how this is going to go, and Jamie ain't going to be happy.
Well, like I say, it is what it is. Before I was like, screw this. I'll do anything but that. But then I realized I will never, ever watch this show if left to my own accord to do so. So I thought we might as well make it an option. And if the people want to hear about it, at least I'll finally say I've watched the show. So silver lining and all that. Sometimes my mouth sometimes does things that make my brain hurt. And this is going to be one of those cases, I think. But I solemnly promise right now, before all of you listeners and my co-podcasters here, I'm going to do my very best, and I'm not going to promise there won't be snark and snide comments and everything else about it. I solemnly promise to do my best to take the show for what it is instead of what I think it should be or as a disappointment overall. So
I second that, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. I appreciate that. The good thing is about the list of the 4 is I like them all to one degree or another. So I wasn't rooting super hard for anything over anything else. So I was pretty comfortable with, hey, whatever the listeners want, I'll do it. It's fine.
Batman 66 would be a lot of work, I reckon.
Yeah, because especially for seasons 1 and 2, they're all 2-parters. Uh-huh. So it's not a 22-minute homework assignment. It's at
No.
least a 44-minute homework assignment.
Well, I mean,
So,
how often
yeah, that's
do
a
we
little
just
more
review
involved.
one episode at a time, though? I mean, there's that. So
Yeah.
But that's the thing,
So,
though. I mean,
yeah.
you're getting through 2 episodes, but only one story.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the people have spoken, and Jamie has agreed to it. So, guys, it's a victory. And Brendan has agreed to it too. He wasn't as staunch of a no
Brendan's
way.
along for the ride, but Brendan's not a fan of this show either.
So anyway, in order to kick it off right, we are dedicating this episode to kicking off the show for Batman Beyond. So without further ado, as you all have requested, it is time to start our rewatch of Batman Beyond.
or first watch in some cases.
That's true.
I have to admit, I have seen the first season.
I feel like I've seen most of the show because I definitely I bought all the DVDs and I started a rewatch at that point, but I feel like I only kind of got halfway through season 2 and then I got distracted and I never finished. So I definitely have not seen every episode, but I've seen a lot of episodes. I did not watch it regularly during its initial run because we've talked about this, I think, before. It premiered in 1999, and so I was 20 years old. Yes, 20 years old. And so I just had other things going on. It was the same reason I didn't watch The New Adventures of Batman in its initial run, as I just was getting older. I was in college, and I just had other things to take up my time other than the new Batman animated series. So this is one that I did sort of catch up and watch when I could, and I think I watched most of it when the DVDs were released because that was when I was like, oh, I should watch this from the beginning. So this will be educational for all of us.
I remember buying... Sorry, go.
Oh, go. No, please go.
I remember buying... Because if this did air in Australia in 99, it may have only been on pay TV, which I didn't have. So I don't...
Pay TV, is that what you south
Sort
of
of
the
like
equator
cable.
people call cable?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which I didn't have. And I remember the first time I'd heard of this show was I was in a store one day in early 2000, and there was a video, of course, and if you don't know, over here it was called Batman of the Future. And
that's right.
And it was like Batman of the Future, the movie, and I think it was only the first 2 episodes.
That
so
is
it wasn't
correct.
much of a movie, put together, and I watched that back then, and I was kind of like, yeah, I mean, I was 16, and I was like, yeah, okay, cool, whatever. And then I did see Return of the Joker again. I saw it in a video store, late 2001, and I bought that and watched that, and I'm like, again, I was like, yeah, okay, cool. But yeah, I didn't really watch any of it until, actually it was 10 years ago, 2009. They released the first season on DVD over here. They've only ever released the first season. It's the remaining 2 have never come out. So it'll be interesting to see if we get the box set that's meant to be coming out at the end of the year. But yeah, so I have seen season 1. I watched it 10 years ago when the DVD first hit. So
how do you plan to watch after season 1?
I will have to look into that.
Oh, okay. Just curious.
To be honest, I don't know if you can get it digitally over here or not. Because it's one of those things I'm sort of like, well, it's not my favorite. I've got the first season, so that's sort of enough to fill that sort of gap in the collection, if that makes sense. But I was only saying with Luis on the Nightlight last week, we were talking about that Blu-ray box set. And, if it does get released over here, the completist in me, particularly now that I've got the animated series Blu-ray box set is kind of like, yeah, I might grab it just to sort of have it, but it's not something I'd rush for. I'd probably get it when it's on sale or something like that.
Yeah, it's like we talked about that.
Well, I mean, he doesn't have to worry about how to watch the other 2 seasons because they're on DC Universe. He can watch them on DC Universe.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I mean, duh.
What, too soon?
Yeah.
Anyway, you'll figure out a way to watch Batman Beyond.
I will.
As you mentioned, so what did we watch to prepare for this episode? We watched not 1 episode, not 2. We watched the first 3 episodes of Batman Beyond. Boom, because we're committing. We're diving in head first.
He says committing. I say we're getting through it as quick as possible.
I was putting a positive spin on it. But yeah, so the first 2 episodes, it's a 2-parter called Rebirth. That was packaged separately as Batman Beyond the movie, or if you're in Australia, Batman of the Future, the movie. But you're right, like it's not much of a movie because it's 45 minutes long.
No. Oh, here you go, Batman Beyond. It's on iTunes for $20 a season.
There you go. So I think I owned Batman Beyond the movie on DVD, and then I owned Batman Beyond Return of the Joker, and then eventually, once the actual seasons came out, I bought those too. But yeah, they did package and release the first 2 episodes as a quote-unquote movie right around that time. So we watched the first 3, and that's what we're going to be discussing. So if you are going to follow along with us on this rewatch of Batman Beyond, as we just mentioned in excruciating detail, it's on DC Universe. So if you're in the States, you're covered. If you're not in the States, it's on iTunes. Or maybe you have it on your shelf already, or maybe you're going to buy the box set. I don't know, whatever works for you. Jamie, me and Brendan just both inadvertently shared like our familiarity with Batman Beyond. Is there anything you would like to add on your side?
I've periodically over the years watched an episode here or there. I don't remember which ones. I don't remember many specific details. I do remember that not long after you guys got me to watch Return of the Joker, which I still think that's a great movie, by the way. I tried to go back and watch the series.
It is.
What's that?
Mm-hmm. I said you were correct. It is a great movie.
Yeah, I really enjoy it.
I was just agreeing with you.
In fact, I think I've seen it twice since. I really enjoy that film. Anyway, I think it was Leroy or somebody who's like, oh, you need to watch the series. I'm like, all right. And I bent and I gave it a chance. And I went on, I think it was on Amazon at the time, and started watching. I think I got through like 4 episodes and I'm like, no, this just isn't for me. And I just never got into it. I mean, obviously when it was out initially, I was never into it. I think we discussed this before. I think I said I was 24 years old when this premiered. So, I mean, I was like way out of the demographic for who this would appeal to on first run. And, you know, young people need to understand back then, if you weren't sitting in front of a TV when the thing aired or catching it when it reran, you weren't watching it unless you were taping it on a VHS, because DVR wasn't really a thing in the late 90s, at least not that I'm aware of. If it was so new that like 1 in every 1,000 people had it, kind of a thing. So I just, this show never clicked with me. It was never something that appealed to me demographically. It was never my thing, which is why I've always resisted watching it. But here we are. We're going to get it done. We're going to get through it. And, you know, as I said before, I promise to try and be as positive focused as I can and take the show for what it is, instead of just, you know, brushing it off as this isn't my Batman. I don't want to be that guy. So I'm not going to promise I won't say funny, you know, nasty things here and there, though. I'm not making that promise. I'm just going to promise to try and be as well behaved about it as I can.
Jamie, as Peter Venkman said, don't be a dick.
Venkman's a smart guy, so.
No, I mean, and all that does make sense. I will also say that my brother-in-law Ray, who I did have him on this show once before, like Batman Beyond was his favorite Batman. So most of what I saw of Batman Beyond came from Ray. I remember him being super excited for the premiere and videotaping it, and then he like videotaped it every week, and so he would show me episodes here and there, and he just loved Batman Beyond. He was all in on it. So yeah, I mean, for it's a show that I think is none of the three of our favorites. Again, I like it for what it is. I'm just never gonna love it as much as Batman the Animated Series. I'm just not. But I still appreciate what it is. But there is a whole generation of Batman fans out there who were the right age when this was airing, and they love this show, and they have a lot of affinity for it. And those fans continue to have a lot of love for it because Batman Beyond has been an incarnation of the character that has lived on past the show. You know, it's shown up in comic books. There was a feature film in development at one time. Again, I would bet money that we will get a feature film of Batman Beyond at some point. It just makes sense because there's a lot of love for this show. So even if it's not your favorite Batman, it's still a very valid Batman. It has a lot of love for it. So we should still be covering it on this show, on Holy BatCast.
No disagreement.
So I do think that, you know, and especially like this was the creative team behind Batman the Animated Series. So it was Bruce Timm, Paul Dini, and Alan Burnett, who were like the three-headed Hydra masterminds behind Batman the Animated Series. And I'm going to do my best to remember the history of what happened, but I'm sure that Bruce Timm or Paul Dini, or maybe both, talked about it on Kevin Smith's Fat Man on Batman, back when that show was about Batman. But the way I recall, and I might get some things wrong, forgive me in advance, but you guys chime in if you remember it differently. But I remember one of them, or again, maybe both, saying that Warner Brothers approached them after they wrapped up Batman the Animated Series, and they're like, we want another Batman show, but we want it to be younger, we want it to be hipper, and we want it to be set in the future. So they kind of gave them this assignment. And then it was up to that team to then create what this show is going to be, which is Batman Beyond. So considering what a calculated move it was to make this show, if anything, I'm just impressed how good the show turned out. From getting the executive order of being like, make us a cool and hip Batman show that's not your other Batman show. You know, that's kind of not a great way to start the creative process, but these three guys are just so talented that they were still able to make a hell of a good show out of that pitch.
I want to see the inner office memo on there to see if it's, and by the way, we want him to be like Spider-Man on there.
Well, and then there's that too, because obviously they were taking some sort of inspiration from Spider-Man 2099, and they wanted their Batman version of that. I don't remember that ever being called out specifically, but I mean, if you're a nerd and you know both, it's not a hard line to draw between the two of them.
No, certainly not.
I think an Iron Man vibe from it as well.
Well, as far as like gadgets and stuff, but like, well, I guess maybe there was an Iron Man 20, but I feel like of all the 2099 books from Marvel, the only one in my recollection that really got traction was Spider-Man 2099. I feel like the others came and went pretty quick.
There were 4 books on the 2099 initial slate. I remember that. I don't remember what became of them after. I think they tried to make it a thing, but you know, the other ones did kind of faceplant. There was Spider-Man, Punisher, X-Men, and then I think there was an original, I want to say it was called like Ravager or something like that.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, I do remember the launch of that, and it was going to be a big deal, but then I feel like the only one I ever saw after that launch was Spider-Man.
Pretty much.
And so, yeah, it does also feel like a little cynical on WB's part of being like, hey, Marvel's got Spider-Man 2099. That's their biggest character. Shouldn't we have Batman 2099? And it definitely feels like that's what they were trying to do. So again, huge kudos to Bruce Timm, Paul Dini, and Alan Burnett for going, okay, we'll do it. And then they managed to make it pretty good, you know? I mean, your mileage may vary, but like it's much better than it should be based on the inception of it. It's not like they sat around going, do you know what would be cool? But it like came down from on high. And I also think it's somewhat ironic that now, and this might ruffle some feathers, look out, hot take, now 20 years later, Spider-Man 2099 is pretty much dead, but Batman Beyond, which is essentially the knockoff, has gotten far more pop culture significance than Spider-Man 2099 does.
I feel like Spider-Man 2099 still peeks his head out here and there, but it hasn't been like a mainstay sort of a thing. Like, it hasn't completely gone away, but like once in a while it'll pop up and then people will be like, hey, remember this guy? So
Yeah.
But
Yeah, like, he'll get nods in
pretty sure
comics.
didn't Spider-Man have the 2099 have an animated series or something? I don't remember if it did or not. It seems to me it did, but somebody Google that for me real quick while I'm talking.
Yeah, I have no idea.
I remember the Phantom 2040.
Oh yeah, I remember that too. But anyway, my point is Batman Beyond was the knockoff, but I feel like the knockoff surpassed the popularity and the cultural relevance of the original. Is my point.
Well,
I think having
never
it
even
tied
heard of Spider-Man 2099.
Yeah. I think having it tied more closely to something that already had a strong foothold in pop culture, being Batman the Animated Series and having Kevin Conroy back as Bruce Wayne, I do think that served some goodwill for this show on its initial takeoff. And, people went with it because, and how many people responded to me when I was complaining about this on Twitter and saying, well, this is the sequel to Batman the Animated Series, so it makes sense that this is what you do. That's a valid point. I can't argue that point. I offered no resistance to anybody that said that because you're right. You're absolutely right. So Spider-Man didn't really have that because I don't think 2099 had any ties whatsoever to Peter Parker. If it did, then it's beyond me. But I think I only read like the first issue of it and stopped after that. But anyway, not important. Point is, you're right. It is interesting that the one that borrowed the idea and before anybody gets into the hate mail section here, Marvel and DC have been stealing shit from each other since their inceptions.
Right.
It's nothing new. It's a back and forth thing. It's been going on for longer than any of us have been alive. So it's just how things work in the business, whatever. But this one having the staying power that it has over, 52 episodes and 3 seasons, I think is what it is.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And here 20 years later, it's still got a rabid fan base. And I don't say that as a negative. If you love the show, that's your thing. Cool. That to me is impressive because that's not a super long show. It wasn't a show that stuck around for a decade. It wasn't a thing that made a generational pass from one thing to another, like say a Scooby-Doo or something like that, where, people were showing their kids while it was still airing because it wasn't around that long. So for it to have the staying power that it has is really quite impressive, if you ask me.
No, it really is. It's super impressive. And I think you're right. I think that because it is a sequel series to Batman the Animated Series, that did earn it a lot of goodwill. And and I'm speaking for myself, that was why I was most interested in it. I mean, of course I was interested because it had the name Batman on it, but I was interested because it was still Kevin Conroy's Batman. And then when you watch the show, you go, oh, this is the same Batman, and this is just 40 years down the road. So I think that helps it a lot because it's grounded in something we already know, which means it's also a sequel series to, even though it came out beforehand, but, Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, this still serves as a sequel to those because jumping way, way ahead, Justice League Unlimited ties into it. So someday we'll get to that, or maybe we won't. Who knows? But yeah, the fact that it's all combined, or, it's all part of the same universe, I think really does help this show a lot. So getting into the show, again, we watched the first 3 episodes. This show premiered in January of 1999, so right at the beginning of 1999. And the first 2 episodes are Rebirth. So the first episode here was, we kick off with a prologue, and we essentially see Batman's final mission, where it's a pretty standard thing where a woman's being held for ransom, and then the crooks are not going to let her go. They're going to kill her. So Batman swoops in for the save. You see Batman wearing what will become the Batman Beyond outfit, because over the years he has evolved his look and his gadgets and everything. So this is the latest and greatest. And things go bad. These crooks get the better of him, and he ends up in a moment of desperation picking up a gun and holding the gun to the criminal to save himself. And that is the straw that broke the camel's back. And at that point, Batman quits. He's done. And then we get the opening title sequence. And then we meet Terry McGinnis. And Terry McGinnis is this cool teenager. And he's a little bit of a hothead, but he seems like a good guy. He's helping strangers out who are getting mugged. We see a gang of the Jokers. He's got a girlfriend. He gets into trouble at school, but not for anything like too bad. Like what? The guy spits in his face, so he hits the guy, and so he gets in trouble. He lives with his dad. His dad works for Derek Powers. Derek Powers is essentially like Lex Luthor of the future. Can we say that? Is that fair?
Oh, I think that's spot on, actually.
So Derek Powers is is this big, or can we say he's the Max Schreck of the future? He's this big, powerful businessman in Gotham, and Terry's dad works for him. There's some shenanigans going on at the company. Terry's dad ends up with this super secret disc with some very sensitive information on it, and ends up getting killed for it. So he gets killed, and Terry ends up, again, fighting back against the Jokers. They chase him to Wayne Manor, and where he runs into old Bruce Wayne. And old Bruce Wayne, who, by my estimation, is about 80.
Let's say,
I think.
Yeah.
Because okay, so this is funny that the prologue where Bruce picks up the gun, that prologue is set in 2019, which is right now.
Huh.
So that's happening somewhere right now in Gotham. And then we jump ahead 20 more years to 2039. So the show takes place in 2039. So the show is about 40 years after the new Batman Adventures, which would make him about 75 or 80.
Yeah.
Depending on how old you think he is in Batman the Animated Series. But let's say he's 80.
Yeah, 80 sounds good.
Sounds about right. So
he might just be a really rough 65. You don't know.
It could be. He's had a hard life.
He's had a hell of a life, yeah.
Yeah.
Even the destroyer of all things beautiful was watching the first 2 episodes with me at dinner last night. And she even said, boy, he's got a lot of yellow going on. He's jaundiced. He might want to get his liver checked out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is a Bruce Wayne who committed to being Batman for decades, not 18 months, and then retiring.
Oh, snap.
Way harsh, Todd. That's
sorry,
twice in one morning I've had to use that now.
Oh, well, it's always the right time for way harsh tie. Anyway, so old man Bruce just lays waste to these Jokers, which is pretty badass. And Terry helps him inside, and Terry's going to call his dad. He finds the Batcave. He realizes that old Bruce was Batman. His dad's dead. He finds the disc. He knows that there are shenanigans going on at Powers, which has become Wayne Powers, because like Powers, I guess it was sort of like a hostile takeover of Wayne Enterprises. And so now it's Wayne Powers.
After, because at the beginning, and if you're watching the news clips in the background, it talks about Powers attempting to acquire Wayne Industries, but then later on it happens after he quits being Batman. It essentially happens. So yeah, that's my assumption, is that hostile takeover did occur.
Yeah. But Bruce is kind of sort of still involved in like a figurehead way, like the Queen of England. And so Terry realizes that there was something going on at the company, and that's what got his dad killed. And so he goes back to Wayne Manor to ask for Bruce's help, and Bruce lets him in, and that is where part 1 concludes. So, Rebirth Part 1, I want to hear your thoughts, Jamie.
Well, I mean, what would a podcast be without me, pulling a jump around immediately? My favorite thing about the episode was the bat being trapped in the clock, and that's how Terry found the Batcave, because that feels like a little bit of a nod to the origin of Batman, where the bat comes flying through the window and gives him the inspiration.
Right.
That felt like a really good nod to me. I don't know why. That part just really worked well for me. But overall, I think it was a pretty impressive episode. I think establishing Terry as kind of a hothead goes well for his character. I love seeing Bruce in action in this. I've seen a lot of people say over the years, and I've actually seen this episode before. This is one of them that I saw on the rewatch that Leroy encouraged me to do after the Return of the Joker thing. So my memories were hazy at best, but I do remember watching it. People saying how heartbreaking it is when Bruce picks up that gun and then his reaction to it. And, me being the cynic that I am immediately goes, so holding the gun in your hand sucks, but having it on the Batmobile's okay? All right, got it. Even though I'm not sure the animated series is even as guilty of that as most of the live action stuff. So, I mean, that might be out of line there. I don't know. But I get what they were going for. I think it was a good episode overall. I don't have much else to say. I mean, I'm not going to get into high praise for it or anything. Bruce kicking the crap out of the Jokers out in front of Wayne Manor was also a really big highlight for me. I'd say that's second behind the bat trapped in the clock.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, this one, I've seen this one a bit myself. It's fine. I do, being sort of, not 16 when I'm watching it and, looking at it through adult eyes and knowing a lot more about how these things work, they showed a lot of restraint not putting him in the costume in the first episode.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is they showed parts 1 and 2 back to back on January 10th of 1999.
Okay.
So
maybe that's how they got.
You didn't even have to wait a week. Yeah.
Okay. But I mean, yeah, just the way you would have thought the bosses of the company and that would have been is like, no, you need to get him in the suit faster, because the whole first episode it's just set up.
Totally.
But I mean, yeah, it's fine. It is what it is. I don't have any real standouts from it. But I don't have any complaints for this one. Like, I'm with Jamie as in that I actually don't mind the two-parter, like the first episodes. They're not too bad. But
yeah, I mean, like you guys, this is the one I've seen the most because it was part of Batman Beyond the movie. So I did watch this one more than once when it came out. I just didn't follow the series. So this one I already knew pretty well to the point where I could have almost skipped it, but we're not. I'm a completist. We'll do it all. But I agree with you guys. It is mostly set up, but I think it's really good. And I was surprised too of like where it ended. We didn't really get Batman Beyond yet, and I respect that. Some things I like. I love the idea of the Jokers as this gang that terrorizes Gotham, because the creators of this show, they still wanted to include as much of the Batman iconography as they can, but they had to think of creative ways to do it because it's 40 years in the future. And so,
which is actually a point where
Joker,
the Rebirth era of comics. I read that up until about probably 2 or 3 months ago, and most of it was actually pretty good. The comics did an excellent job of bridging the legacy of the Batman characters into that future element. With the Joker gang is heavily involved, and Damian, spoilers, becomes Ra's al Ghul, which I thought was amazing. That was a great arc in that. On and on. Really, really good stuff in there. So I'm hoping I get some of that out of this series. I'm not holding my breath, but I'm hoping.
One thing I did forget to mention is it's interesting that in 20 years' time, CDs are going to become a thing again.
I know. I'm looking forward to that. I miss my CDs.
Well, not a flash drive like that.
Right now, cassette tapes. Cassette tapes are a big deal right now.
Actually, yeah,
my daughter saw a cassette tape when we were going through the closet looking for a video game the other day, and she saw that. She's like, "What's that?" I was like, "It's a cassette tape." She's like, "That's cool." I'm like, "We don't have anything to play it on. Just leave it be. Let it." So that's how these things happen. So yeah, CDs will come back. Mini disc.
Well, good.
Mini disc.
I'm glad I didn't throw away all my big CD wallets. It's just sitting in the closet waiting to be dusted off. It was funny, a couple months ago when I was traveling, I went to this old used bookstore, and it was a bookstore but also had used CDs and cassette tapes and video games and toys. Like it was this awesome resale shop.
Sounds awesome.
Oh God, it was great. And it was in Texas. It was when I did my Twister trip.
Oh, yep.
So I did my little Twister road trip, and yeah, we went to this resale shop, and it was massive, and it had everything. And I bought way more than I should, and I bought a cassette tape, knowing full well I would never play it, but it was a cassette of Neil Diamond Heartlight.
Oh, wow.
Which, so it's Neil Diamond, and it's E.T., and it's a cassette, and it was like 99 cents, and I was like, I'm just buying this because It's cool. I don't have a tape deck. I don't know what I'll do with it, but it's $1 and I want it. And so, yeah, I just have one random cassette of Neil Diamond, Heartlight.
To ask the important question, was the gravy its own food group?
Oh, no, because Meg's house has been torn down. And it's heartbreaking. Fun fact I learned is we went to the site of where Meg's house was, and when it falls down in the movie, they literally tore down the real house. That was that was real. Yeah.
That's dedication to the craft there.
So I want to find where Meg moved to and then have her gravy because it's practically a food group. Your point is well taken, Jamie. Anyway, back to Batman Beyond. So I do love the prologue. A lot of writers have taken a crack at Batman's last mission, and I think that this is kind of an interesting one. And I like what broke him is him resorting to doing what I guess the criminals would do. Without getting into does he use guns, does he kill? I don't want to get into that. But for this incarnation, I think it works, and I like it a lot.
It's very brief too, which is kind of, I say about them not getting Terry in the costume in the first episode, they also had to do something very quick to get that point across so they could jump to the future. Yeah. Which they did that pretty well.
Definitely.
Another thing I wanted to give props to is I love that he's wearing that costume in that opening sequence. Mm-hmm. Instead of being the kid comes along and Bruce designs a suit specifically for him, the suit's already there. And I think it was episode 2 when they started getting into it where he talks about, this suit's been around for a while, but it's still like cutting edge, state of the art technology or something to that effect. So that's a nice thing where he shows back up in that costume, Terry does, and people automatically recognizing him as Batman because Bruce was wearing that costume at the end of his career there. And still saying that the technology is relevant because he was so far ahead of his time. I just think that was well done. I think that was really well done there.
Okay, guys, come closer. Can I tell you a secret just between us?
Okay.
I've never really liked the design of the suit.
I haven't either, which is part of the reason the show turned me off. Is like as soon as I saw the images on the promotional spots or whatever it was, I was like, eh. Although I do think that's where the Batwoman bat symbol came from, was that suit.
Yeah, I don't like the full. This is going to sound really terrible, but I don't like the full blackface. I don't like that look. It needs a cape. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's just not. I don't really like it. I never have. Sorry to the fans. No,
I get it. That it's too far gone from the look that I personally like for Batman to really be into it. Like, to me, that would be like a special mission costume kind of a thing, like an armor he'd use to fight Superman or something along those lines instead of just being his daily costume. But I get it. They're going future. They made it sleeker, so on and so forth. I understand why. Not my personal preference, but again, I like the way they make that bridge between Bruce using the costume and Terry using the costume without making any real changes to it.
Yeah, that's true though.
And I will agree. Like I like the Batman Beyond look, okay, but is there a version that was a little more faithful to his traditional look that I would have liked more? I'm sure there is. So I get what you're saying there. The opening credits. So I do find it somewhat ironic that for this for this show that was trying to be futuristic, its attempts to feel futuristic makes it feel very dated.
Yep.
I would ride with you on that, except for as I was watching the credits of the first episode, I was like, what? And I had to rewind it to see it again. Do you know who did the opening credits for that?
I do.
Who?
Darwin Cook.
Yep.
Oh, that's right. I did see that. And that's great, but like I feel like the one word apathy, corruption, honor, it's so pretentious.
It's like an NXS video.
It really is.
And the music through the whole show, the music, like they're trying to be futuristic, so it's a lot of like guitar riffs and stuff. And now it just sounds, to me, it just sounds dated. I think it's funny that like an orchestral sound will always sound timeless. So if you listen to the music from Batman the Animated Series, it just sounds like music. It doesn't sound like it's from an era. But I hear the Batman Beyond music and I'm like, oh, 90s. Yeah, 90s.
I was thinking the same thing because I haven't watched it in so long. I was kind of thinking like, you can tell that to me. It was like I can tell this is made at a time when groups like Korn and Limp Bizkit were really big.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's how it feels to me. Well, yeah. But that I don't know. It just feels like that kind of. They're trying to do like that hard rock music, but I mean, obviously with a TV show budget, so it's not as well done. I don't know. It just that's another thing I don't like about this show.
Yeah,
I don't mind.
I get it.
I actually kind of like it, but full acknowledgement to what you're saying about it dating the time period of when it was made.
Yeah, I get it. Like they wanted it to have its own sound. They didn't want it to sound like the animated series. I get that, but like the sound they went with to me just kind of sticks it in a certain amount of a certain time.
It actually needs to be more of an electronic score.
Yeah, no, I think that would work a lot better.
Hire Daft Punk and do a special edition.
Hey, that's where my mind went. I was like, Tron Legacy score, that would work. So yeah, I feel like it's a very dated vision of the future.
Yep.
A couple fun things. Terry's mom is voiced by Terry Garr.
Caught that. Yep.
Terry's dad, I was like, I know his voice. Why do I know his voice? And it is Michael Gross of Family Ties fame.
Oh, wow.
That I did not catch.
Yeah.
Of course, he was
Terry
only in the
McGinnis
first
himself.
episode.
Yeah, I mean, don't get used to him. Terry McGinnis himself is Wilfred L., who I've always liked. He just seems like a good dude, and I think he's really good as Terry. And then, as we said, Kevin Conroy, the legend, is back as Bruce Wayne, which goes so far in making this show so good because his Bruce Wayne is the best part. I mean, can I say that? Well, I'm gonna say it.
I'm not fighting.
So yeah, just some love there to the vocal cast. Something that will be important later is you do learn that there is this reaction or this virus to this nerve gas that's being created at Wayne Powers that causes a kind of a deterioration of the human body. And in this first episode, Derek Powers mentions that, the only way to take care of it is like high doses of radiation. The only way to cure it is high doses of radiation.
Extreme heat.
Yes, and extreme heat. So that'll be important later. So I feel like it was worth mentioning. I do think the highlight is old Bruce taking out all of the Jokers. I think that's the best. And he's got Ace the Bat Hound.
Mm-hmm.
The destroyer of all things beautiful caught that, believe it or not. She looked over at me and said, "Does he name all of his dogs Ace?" I said, "Yeah, pretty much."
Yes, he does. Like Snowball and Snowball 2 from The Simpsons. Same difference. But yeah, so I mean, I do think there's a lot to like. And I guess this is a good time to mention Eddie, and I'll say it once and then I won't belabor the point because, as Jamie says, I don't want to be like, here's what I want the show to be, because the show is what it is. But I guess part of the reason I don't love the show maybe as much as many of the fans is I don't like this as an ending for Bruce Wayne. I don't like that Bruce Wayne ends up bitter and alone and old, cooped up in Wayne Manor without talking to anyone or seeing anyone. I just think that is a tragic end for a hero, and I don't like it. But for the sake of this show, it's what it should be, because then, of course, like Terry's going to bring him back into the world.
Yeah, I absolutely see this as an Elseworlds translation. Like you said, the last Batman story, if you will, that so many shots have been taken at that over the years, some to better degree than others. I think it was, and this runs together for me because I sat down and watched all 3 episodes in one sitting at dinner and just after. There was a really good moment with Barbara and he. Was that episode 3 where they were on the phone talking?
Yes.
Okay.
We don't see Barbara till episode 3.
All right. We'll get to that when we get there. I'll come back around to that.
Yeah, he does mention her in this one where he says, well, moving into Rebirth Part 2. How about that? How about we move into Rebirth Part 2? So Bruce Wayne does let Terry back into the mansion, and now they are chatting in the Batcave. And this is the moment that you mentioned, Jamie, and I think, again, I agree with you. It was really smart writing to acknowledge, yes, the latest suit is still 20 years old, but it's still state-of-the-art. Mm-hmm. And Terry even mentioned some of the features because guess what? We're going to see it in action in a little bit. So I think that is very clever. Bruce checks out this disc and he's like, okay, they're making nerve gas. I think that's when he figures it out.
Yeah.
I think. And he's like, and yeah, all he says is take this to Commissioner Gordon. That's all you need to do. And Terry's like, no, you can't. You do more? Isn't there something else we can do? And he's like, just take it to Commissioner Gordon. And so that's where they leave it. And Terry ends up getting ambushed by Derek Powers and Mr. Fix, his big...
Oh, my.
What? Yes. George Takei, who has an amazing voice. But what's the name of Ra's al Ghul's big, strong dude?
Ubu.
Ubu?
Yeah.
So I feel like Mr. Fix was like an Ubu.
Pretty much.
It sounds like a
So
Pierce
they-
Brosnan time period Bond henchman is what it sounds like.
To me, I just keep thinking of Dark City because it was like Mr. Hand, Mr. Quick, Mr. Fix. If you haven't seen Dark City, you should see it. It's amazing. Anyway, have you seen it, Brendan?
Nope.
I've seen it twice. That's all I'm going to say.
Add it to your scare-a-thon.
Okay.
It's close enough to a scare. It's more sci-fi than horror, but I'll allow it. Anyway,
Okay.
So they ambush Terry. They're trying to get him in the limo. He escapes, but they do get their hands on the disc. And so he goes in and he steals the bat suit. So for the first episode, not getting him in the suit at all, he gets into the suit, I feel like, pretty quickly in the second episode.
Yeah. It doesn't take much.
And so he takes matters into his own hands, and he's out in the bat suit trying to figure it out. But it can fly, and I do think that that's maybe why they went with wings instead of a cape, is because they wanted him to fly in this version. And you start seeing some of the gadgets that he's got. I've always thought that the fingertip microphones are pretty awesome.
That's not bad.
I thought that was pretty
I like how
clever.
Terry just knows how to use it all.
He's a smart kid.
I'm going to go with it because I'm going to say that the neural interface provides instructions to it. Because, I mean, I'm going to assume that it's... Oh, God, I hate drawing this parallel because it's going to just break me. I'm assuming that even though you don't see the POV for it, it's like the Iron Man suit where there's like a head-up display inside of the mask that's showing him all the available options.
Well, that's what I meant before when I said Iron Man, because it feels like that to me, and Bruce is Jarvis. Like, Bruce is the voice in the
Kinda.
head. Yeah.
Yeah, except this is good.
Well,
Oh, okay. I mean, yes. I also like, though, that when he is initially flying, they animate him where you can tell he's a little clumsy, he's a little unsure of himself, and then he starts getting better, and I think he even says something like, oh, that was better, or at least as far as maneuvering, they showed that he wasn't entirely confident at the beginning, but yes, how did he know that the fingertips had these built-in amplifiers? I don't know, but I don't really care. It's fine. But I thought it was a clever device that Batman would find very useful, I guess was my point.
I can go with this much better than something like somebody gains superpowers and all of a sudden becomes the best fighter on the planet. Because I've seen that scenario way too many times on both sides of the fence, Marvel, DC, even others, where like somebody's like a timid thing gets super strength and all of a sudden they know how to throw a perfect sidekick or something like that. You know, I go with this sort of thing much better than I go with that. And I can pretty much roll with any of it.
Yeah. So Terry is investigating Powers, and he's listening in. He ends up getting confronted by some guards. He ends up in this big fight with the guards, and as he's doing that, Bruce chimes in and he's like, "You took my suit. I want it back right now." And Terry's in the middle of a fight when this happens, and eventually Bruce shuts down the suit while Terry is in the middle of a fight. So he starts just getting beat to hell. And
see, this is a scene I had a real problem with.
Really?
Yeah. I didn't like it at all. The way that, Bruce can hear Terry getting the shit kicked out of him, and he's just, he's seriously considering doing nothing. And it's just dude, you're all about saving the innocent. I mean, yes, Terry stole your suit, but don't be an asshole.
Well, I mean,
Oh, see, I
he
felt like
sat
he
on
was
it-
just giving it a minute.
He sat on it for too long for my liking. I don't know. It just didn't feel very Bruce Wayne to me.
I understand what you're saying, and I'm going to respectfully disagree with you on it, because at this point, Bruce would want to see what the kid's capable of doing and how he's going to react in a situation. To me, that's a Bruce moment, figuring that sort of thing out. Like, what's this kid's going to do under duress? And in the worst possible scenario, how's this kid going to react? Is he going to panic? Is he going to lose his crap? And if your mind immediately goes to the epilogue episode of the Justice League Unlimited, where the true origin of Terry is revealed, one must assume that Bruce has this in his mind at this point, right?
I guess so.
He's really going to have an interest in this kid's well-being. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know. I felt more it would be, to me, it would have played better if it wasn't a case of paralyzing the suit so Terry can't move at all, but it takes away the enhanced powers, so Terry has to fight by himself to try and get out, and he's not just laying there completely helpless having three guys literally kick the shit out of him.
But again, worst possible scenario, how's he going to react?
But he can't move.
I think that's exactly worst possible scenario. You're getting the crap kicked out of you by three guys, and you have literally no possible physical response to this. What's your reaction going to be? Because at some point you're going to be tied up next to a giant clam while your partner's being eaten, and you're going to need to know what you're going to do. Are you going to be able to maintain a cool head and process the situation and assess everything and be able to respond accordingly? To me, that's where my mind went with this scenario. I'm not saying that you're wrong or your feelings on this are invalid, but to me, that's where my mind went is let this kid get into the worst vat of shit that he can, and what's his response going to be? That's how I took this sequence.
I'm sort of in between. I think, Jamie, I think you're reading way too much into it. I don't think that's what he's doing at all. I think he is literally shutting it down to prove that he can, letting him take a little beating, and he was always going to turn it back on. But he needed to prove that he still has control of the situation.
Okay, I can go with that.
Like, that was how I took it. Is he's sitting there waiting, and he's like, I'm going to give it a few seconds, let him realize, and then I'll turn it back on. Like, he would never let him die. I didn't think that was ever a possibility. But I also don't think the epilogue episode makes a lot of sense. So that's a whole nother thing.
I know that's a retcon thing. I really doubt that was in anybody's mind from the beginning, but at the same time,
especially when you watch this episode, and if you've seen epilogue, you watch this episode and you're like, yeah, no.
I was just saying that if you take that into consideration, that Bruce is going to have this kid's well-being in his mind because of that. That's all I was trying to say.
Yeah. I don't think Bruce was ever going to just let him go, but I think Bruce just wanted to show that no, like I am still the one driving. So he does let him back up. He lets him, lets him defend himself, and then he's like, okay, now come back. And Terry's like, no, I can't. I need to do this. Somebody needs to take care of this. It's going to be me. And Bruce is like, I don't care. The police can handle it. This is not your job. This is not your place. And the way that Terry appeals to him is to let him know that Mr. Fix and Derek Powers were the cause of his father's death. And so he really appeals to that side of Bruce, and that's just enough for Bruce to go, okay, well, and then Bruce helps him out. And at that point, he is the voice in his head. And I will say one thing I really like about the setup of Derek Powers, especially in season 1, because I think he's only around in season 1, is my understanding, but is that Derek Powers is an enemy for both Bruce and for Terry. So he's an enemy for Terry, and it's personal because he didn't kill Terry's dad, but he ordered the death of Terry's dad. And then he's an enemy for Bruce because he took over Bruce's company and is perverting it and what it should be. So I like that both of them have a reason to oppose Derek Powers. So I think that's really neat.
No, that's solid motivation. You're right.
And so Terry, the fight continues. Terry ends up, and there's a moment earlier on where Bruce even goes and confronts Derek Powers, and he's like, listen, I know I don't have the power over the board, but I can still make things tougher for you. And you can see sort of the back and forth there and the weird, strained relationship of that. But anyway, back towards the end, the fight continues. Derek ends up like with an explosion of the nerve gas with him. And then Terry ends up taking out is it a helicopter? Is it a ship?
Hovercraft.
Whatever.
Thank you.
There we go.
Referring to it as a hovercraft.
Yeah, this giant hovercraft that has the rest of the nerve gas. He eventually sinks that with Mr. Fix inside, and that ends up at the bottom of Gotham Harbor. So that's it for Mr. Fix. I think he comes and goes, and that's it for him. And so, Gotham survives another day, and at this point, then Bruce shows up at Terry's house, and I think Bruce finally sees the promise in this boy, and he offers him a job as a gopher, and the partnership between the two begins. And just as they strike their deal, we see what happened to Derek Powers in that he was exposed to the virus or the nerve gas. He's been cured with the radiation, but there were side effects, and so now he is radioactive skeleton man. He eventually gets the name Blight, but for now he is just changed forever as this radioactive villain.
Anybody else got Imagination Dragons going through their head right now?
Or Imagine Dragons?
No, it's Imagination Dragons, and if you watch Impractical Jokers, you know why I say that.
Okay, sorry.
Anyway.
So that's the second part of Rebirth and the end of the pilot, and that's where we go from there. The other thing I wanted to mention real quick is we meet in episode 1 and in episode 2, we meet Terry's little brother, who looks exactly like he should be Robin.
And he does become Robin in the comics. I can't speak for the TV series as of yet, but in the comics, he is Robin.
So that's what I was going to say, is that in the show, I don't think that ever happened. And I always felt like it was right there. Like, why would you have drawn him like that if he wasn't going to eventually be Robin? But I did hear that eventually in the comics that happened. So I just thought that was interesting. So any other things or thoughts on the second part of Rebirth, Jamie?
I like the idea of Bruce giving him the job, so he has the cover for his girlfriend, mother, brother, everything like that. I mean, that's not an unexpected term, but I like it, and it takes the element out of what you're talking about, where Bruce is alone, and it's him and Ace and a bunch of computers, and there's nobody else. Obviously, there's no Alfred, there's no Robin. He and Barbara have a strained relationship at best, I think. As you can see by the phone conversation they have in episode 3. I like that, where Bruce is open to the idea of bringing somebody back into his life to make that happen, and essentially sets it up where he becomes the Alfred, the Jarvis, whatever you want to call him, to Terry. I mean, that to me is a nice touch. I really appreciated that quite a bit.
Brendan, anything to add?
Not really. I mean, it's just an extension of that first episode, so it's I mean, they're the 2 episodes that I've seen the most. I don't dislike them. Again, I don't want to sort of use the term, because I feel like it's going to be used a lot when we review this series, but the whole it's not my Batman. That's kind of how I feel overall, but I do enjoy the pilot episodes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, overall, I think it's a good follow-up. I think that for what we didn't get of Terry in the suit in the first one, we really make up for it here, and we sort of get to see everything it does with Terry, which will, of course, inform the rest of the series. And so I think for his first mission, I like it. I think it works. I think that Mr. Fix is a good secondary villain to take care of in this pilot, and then keeping Derek Powers as the main adversary. What's funny, though, is I always thought that Derek Powers was the big bad for the whole series, because I only knew the beginning of the show very well, and I just assumed he continued on. But then as I was looking things up, it was like I looked up his voice, who I don't recognize the name of the voice. I've never heard of him. Sherman Howard. But it only says 6 episodes, and I'm like, oh, I guess he's not around as much as I thought he was. And then I also have to say that Lauren Tom is the voice of Terry's girlfriend, Dana. And Lauren Tom is worth noting because she is also Amy Wong on Futurama.
Oh, nice catch.
She does a lot of voice work.
I knew the name. I just couldn't place why.
Yeah. Oh, and apparently she also does Teen Titans Go and Young Justice.
Oh, so she is somebody I hear on like a weekly basis then.
And DC Superhero Girls. So yeah, she does a lot.
So
just within our nerdy circle, not to mention plenty of other stuff.
Sure. Are we purposely skipping letter grades on these, or?
Well, maybe we'll just do them all at the end.
Okay.
I guess.
All right, that's fine.
I didn't even think of it, but yeah, let's just do them all at the end. That's fine.
Andy's in the back of his mind. Brendan hates this show. We're not going to do letter grades.
I don't.
Save the bad news till the end. So we good on Rebirth?
Yes.
Yep.
Feel good? All right, great. And then we moved into the first real non-pilot episode of the series, and this one is called Blackout. And so here we meet a new villain, and her name is Ink.
With a clever futuristic spelling of INQUE.
Yes. And I remember Ink because when Batman Beyond came out, they had Happy Meal toys, or it could have been Burger King Happy Meal toys, whatever Burger King meals are called. It was one of the two. It was McDonald's or Burger King. So I just remember that Ink was one of the first figures that came out because she was one of the first characters they created for the show. So anyway, Ink is, she's shape-shifting. She kind of turns herself into black goo. Hence the name Ink.
Cough, cough, Venom 2099. I was
just about
cough,
to say,
cough.
she's Venom.
Okay, that's interesting because when I watched it, I was like, oh, she's just like another version of Clayface.
See,
I can see that, but I really think
Clayface.
she leans way more toward Venom than Clayface to me.
Yeah.
Okay. So she's been hired by Derek Powers to sabotage other companies. And one of those companies is... Oh, wait. So did Bruce confront Derek in Rebirth? Or no, maybe it was this one. Maybe I mixed them all up.
It was this one because he was talking about the Fox Tech company.
Yeah. Okay, so my bad. So it wasn't in Rebirth. It was in this one. I'm sorry. So there are these... these sabotages happening at rival companies, and it's because Derek Powers has hired Ink to do this. Uh-huh. And one of the companies is Fox Teca.
Which sounds like a Mexican restaurant.
I would go there. And so, this is when Bruce goes in as Bruce and tries to just see what he can figure out from Derek Powers. And through this, I think he actually gets a sample of Ink's ink. From the office, but this is where Derek is super fake, smarmy, friendly, and like, oh, welcome back to the company. If you want to come, I'll give you an office. And Bruce is just not having it and being like, I don't want to know that you had anything to do with this. So there was some good stuff there. They do figure out that it's Ink. They run into her. We kind of see her shape-shifting powers. Eventually, she attaches to the bottom of the Batmobile. So we do see the Batman Beyond Batmobile for the first time, and it's more of a hovercraft than it is a car. Thoughts on the Batman Beyond Batmobile?
I'm not overly excited about it. I don't have any specific major problems with it, but it's not as cool as the Batwing. It's not a traditional, on the street Batmobile. It's fine, I guess. I don't know. I'm not crazy about it.
It flies.
Okay.
It's not a Batmobile.
Oh, okay. I like for this show. I like it. I think it's appropriate for the show. But anyway, so Terry McGinnis gets to drive the Batmobile, and at this point, he and Bruce are full-on partners, and you already see how this is starting to affect his real life because he tries to go out with Dana and immediately gets called in from Bruce. I think there's even a moment where he says, will I get some time for my personal life? And Bruce is like, don't count on
not
it.
In this
sure
business.
Enough, not in this business. And so
Bruce out there cock blocking.
Hey.
Yep.
Fun fact, in the future, hockey and highlight become the same sport.
All right. So yeah, you already start to see like, oh, he doesn't get to have fun because now he's Batman. I also loved, I think it was in Rebirth, there was a moment where when Derek Powers finds out that it's Batman, his reaction is like amused by it, being like, yeah, Batman, apparently Batman's back. It was just kind of funny that he wasn't at all worried about it.
Well, I mean, you could
So
attribute
anyway-
that to his ego, I guess. Like,
Oh yeah, oh no, I mean,
even Batman.
I'm truly saying I like it. Like I liked the reaction. I think it said a lot about him.
Okay.
Anyway, I also like they set up everything in the Batcave, and this is where you get a lot of classic Batman iconography because Batman has set up a Hall of Fame for all of his villains.
This was
So
the most enjoyable part of it for me.
Yeah, so he may have hated those guys, but like once he killed them, he was like, "Well, I'll keep their costume and put them up at my house."
There was a couple of really good touches in there, though. I mean, obviously the Harley costume and Penguin is in there. The one thing I like is the deteriorating puppet for
Scarface. Yeah. No, and I like it. It's like that's the kind of stuff that again appeals to us who like classic Batman and seeing all that stuff in there. And I think they very cleverly set it up because it comes into play later on.
Yes.
So I think Terry says something about like, oh, I don't know a lot about your world. And as he does it, you kind of see all these different bits of paraphernalia that have to do with Batman himself, Batman's partners, Batman's Rogues Gallery. It's all in there.
Batman's
because
fandom.
His what?
His fandom.
Yes. What he is a fan of. Because when Ink follows or attaches herself to the bottom of the Batmobile, she comes back. And see, I guess I felt like it was like Clayface crossed with the T-1000. That was how I kept thinking of
That's
it.
fair. I think that's fair, especially considering how it wraps up.
Yeah, exactly. So she follows him back. Bruce immediately runs off to hide. She starts fighting with Terry, and Bruce shows up. We found out earlier that she does not like water.
Well, here's where I draw the Venom parallels. I mean, obviously the motion, appearance, and everything else kind of are reminiscent of Venom, but Venom's two weaknesses are fire and sonics. Her two weaknesses are water and electricity.
Well, and see, the electricity, I guess, was what reminded me of Clayface, because that's usually how they defeat Clayface.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah. So, but yes, like, yeah, very, very similar. So Bruce shows up with the fire hose, but wearing the Gray Ghost hat and glasses, which is a great callback. And again, really smartly that they acknowledged that piece in the cave earlier on.
Yes.
And so, yeah, so now Terry and Bruce are fighting Ink side by side, which is actually really cool to see them fighting side by side. And eventually she kills the hose, and but then Terry grabs the Mr. Freeze gun and freezes all the pieces.
Didn't they freeze her and she hits the ground and shatters and the pieces are still frozen? Isn't that what happened?
Maybe it's that. Yeah, because all I remember is the visual of all the little pieces in the blocks of ice, but maybe they froze her as when she was just all together, and then when she shattered, it was the many pieces.
I think that's what it was.
Yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, like again, the setup of all the different pieces of the villain's stuff, like allowing the freeze gun, is actually really cool. And so this is when we finally meet Barbara Gordon, who is now the commissioner, and she's got a photo of her father on the desk. And Bruce calls her, and she's like, "Oh, I see you got another one." And what does she say? Have you ever tried talking?
He says something to the effect of,
"Oh, he says, I don't come to them. You all came to me."
and then she gives the line of, and at some point you could have said no or something like that, or you should have said no, maybe. I don't remember the line, but I really like that exchange between those two, and I think, in fact, that may have been my highlight of the entire episode, was that.
Yeah, because she says, "Have you ever tried talking them out of it?" And he goes, "Would it have stopped you?"
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, that was a great moment.
And so, yeah, I do love that interaction. I agree with you. The voice of Barbara Gordon, Stockard Channing.
Wow.
Something of a legend herself.
Indeed.
And she looks out the window, and there is Ink in all the frozen pieces, and it's like, whatever, keep this in the freezer.
Keep it on ice.
Yeah. And so that wraps up Blackout. Any additional thoughts on this one, Jamie?
I really like the movements and the creativity they used with Ink doing her slinking around, attacks, assaults, all that sort of thing. I thought that was really cool. Her really going out of her way instead of just like running like a scared little chicken away from any water situation, like using her powers to her benefit to still be on the attack, like, you know, severing the hose and cutting off that water supply. I liked a lot of that. Past that and the conversation with Barbara, honestly, I watched this episode like 12 or 13 hours ago, and I've forgotten most of it until we kicked up this conversation. So not the most memorable episode, but it's not bad. Not bad.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a huge Clayface fan. But I mean, I don't mind him, but I'm not a big sort of shapeshifter, you know, turn into blobs, that kind of, like, it's just not really my preference when it comes to the Bat villains. So making that, like, taking that side of Clayface and blowing that up, it's not my thing. So I liked the callback stuff in the Batcave, and I loved seeing Bruce wear the Grey Ghost hat and goggles and everything. But yeah, it's just not my thing. That's all I can really say.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I think Ink is okay, but I think that for me, this is why this show is just, it always falls behind something like Batman the Animated Series because of the nature of the show, because it's 40 years in the future, the creators had a huge hurdle, and that huge hurdle was to have to create a whole new rogues gallery from scratch. Mm-hmm. And that's hard.
Yeah.
And I respect the hell out of their attempts to do it. And as we go through the show, we're going to meet a lot of them, and some will like more than others. But that's a tough order to fill when Batman has the most recognizable rogues gallery in all of comics.
Yeah.
And to essentially be saying, okay, we need you to do Batman, and you know all of these recognizable, beloved, and interesting characters, you're not allowed to use any of them, but you've got to create a whole bunch of new ones that are just as good.
Yeah.
Good luck.
And I don't care about any of them.
Yeah, it's hard. And so that, I'm sure, is a somewhat exciting challenge because, yeah, you get to create new Batman villains, but it's a daunting challenge, and it's a lot to ask. So I think Ink is okay. She's not bad. I actually really like her look when she's not blobbing out, you know, when she's her humanoid look. I actually love her design.
She feels a little bit like Livewire when she's in the more humanoid design. Yeah. As far as like the human appearing face and everything. And that's fine. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. It's just that's what triggered in my mind when I saw her like that. Yeah.
So I like her look, and I think she's cool, but I also think that, I mean, as we said, she immediately made us think of at least 3 other villains.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She felt like a tweaked version of a villain we already knew. It didn't feel super unique, and I think they tried, but it's just not quite there. And she's okay. I don't love her, but she's all right. I like the building of powers in this. We see his facade crack and the radiation starting to come out. So we kind of see the challenge there, and I like them setting up that more so we can see that payoff. But yeah, like you said, Brendan, my favorite parts of this episode are the callbacks, and that's going to be true as we go through the show.
Yeah.
Is whenever it hooks back into a more classic Batman is when I'm going to be happiest. But I think it's an okay episode. It's a good episode. I just don't think it's exceptional in any way. But I think that the first 2/3 are okay, and I do think the finale is good. I do like Batman and Terry teamed up fighting Ink in the Batcave. I think for me that was great, and then the little epilogue with Barbara was also really great. So I think it starts but I think it ends strong.
Very cool.
So and we mentioned Fox Tekka, but I also think it's kind of neat that they found a way to weave in Lucius Fox and his family as well. So
I do,
but they do as much as they can.
At the same time, I don't really like the idea that at some point there was like a separation of Fox and Wayne. I mean, that's getting really nitpicky. Like, I totally understand why it was done, and to be able to pull the
Isn't
whole,
that because
hey,
Powers fired him, though?
What's that?
Yeah, so that it was completely on Powers that happened.
I know, but I don't know why. It bothered me. I'm not saying there's not even a good in-story reason for it. It's just, like, personally, it didn't sit well with me that I knew there was some divide there, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of weak, I guess, but it bothered me. Kind of like the way everybody's like, oh, Alfred would never leave Bruce in Dark Knight Rises. Yeah, that whole thing. Like, that's kind of where I'm at with the...
Yeah, but it happened after Bruce wasn't even part of his own company.
I know, but at the same time, it's like, why wouldn't Fox take over Wayne and be able to keep Powers at bay while Bruce was in seclusion or something like that? You know, my brain, again, I'm going to try and not to do this whole, this is what I think it should have been thing with this show, so I don't want to get into a whole thing, but that it just didn't sit well with me for some reason.
All right. All right, Blackout, are we good?
Yep.
All right, so now let's do letter grades for all of them. So Rebirth, we'll just lump together. Rebirth parts 1 and 2, Batman Beyond, the movie. Any closing thoughts and letter grades, Jamie?
Closing thoughts, I don't think I need to say anything more than what I've already said. Letter grade for those 2 episodes combined, I want to put around a B+.
All right, Brendan.
Yeah, nothing else to add. Letter grade for all 3 episodes, C.
Oh, wow. You're just going to do all 3.
Yeah, yeah, there wasn't enough for me to sort of any of them better than the other, I didn't think. So, yeah, C across the board.
Okay. For me, for Rebirth, parts 1 and 2, I think it's a really good pilot. I do. I think it sets up what the show needs to be and what the show is going to be, and I think that it's really good in that way. And introducing Terry and his relationship with Bruce and the new world that we're getting in, I think it's good. So Rebirth, I would give an A-. Blackout, Jamie.
There were some really good moments in it that I liked. I liked Ink as a villain. I don't know if she shows back up or not. I hope she does, because I'm interested in seeing what they progress with her later on. And I absolutely love the phone conversation with Bruce and Barbara. But past that, the episode was a little bit flatter than my preference would have been. Overall grade for that one, I think I'm going to put it a C+.
All right. And Brendan already said he's just given everything a C. Blackout, I thought it was okay, and it certainly had some highlights. But overall, I thought it was an average episode with a couple really nice moments. So I would put it slightly above average because of those moments, and so I would go with a B-.
You just always got to outdo me, don't you? Always.
Just by one click. That's all. So anyway, Rebirth and Blackout, we have started our journey through Batman Beyond, gentlemen. Congratulations.
Yay.
And all the kids at home, I hope you're enjoying it.
This is a great plan. I'm excited to be a part of it.
I think he's worse off than I am with this. So see what you did, people?
I know.
You guys thought I was going to be Debbie Downer, but no, you got to have koala anger about this stuff now. Shoot.
I know. He's little and he's cute, but he's vicious.
He's ferocious.
Full
For
of
the
crabs.
2 hours a day that he's awake and not chewing on eucalyptus leaves, he is a vicious killer.
He's rabid koala. Look out, y'all.
You guys know that, don't you? The koalas have like really bad sexually transmitted diseases.
No.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no, they got crabs real bad.
I had no idea.
Okay.
All I know is that they apparently sleep for like 20 hours a day, which that's called living the life, if you ask me. But
we've all learned something today, and I think that's important.
Yeah.
Anyway, the next episode, whenever we do it, is going to be Golem. Golem? I think it's Golem when it's spelled like that. Anyway.
We'll just call it Smeagol. How's that sound?
That's fine.
Okay.
So anyway, there you go. We have kicked it off, folks. Batman Beyond, here we go. Now, before we wrap up this episode, we're going to check in with you fine folks as we crack open the Wayne Manor mailbox. It's time again for the Wayne Manor mailbox.
You've got mail.
What is a letter for me?
Maybe temporary.
She wrote a letter.
You're one hell of a messenger. This is all, Master Wayne.
First message here is from Elder Murray. It says, "Hey, Andy and Jamie, would you have liked to have seen Willem Dafoe play the Joker back in the day, especially in 1989? I always said he was meant to play the Joker." What do you think, Jamie?
I have always thought, since the idea was pointed out to me, it's not something I was smart enough to make the parallel myself of, hey, this guy should play the Joker. But since it was pointed out to me, yes, I think I would have liked to have seen that because I think he's a great actor. I think he has a superb look to really bring a psychotic type of a Joker to the screen. Even today, if you were going to do it, like I draw this line all the time, but like if somebody was going to make a Dark Knight Returns movie and made him the Joker for it, I'd be all about it. So yes, I think I would have liked to have seen it. Would I have rather seen him than Jack or Heath Ledger or any of the other Jokers that we've gotten? That I don't know, but I certainly would have liked to have seen him give his take on it.
All right, Brendan?
Yes, but only if that means we got Jack Nicholson in a green Power Ranger helmet.
Oh.
Wow.
Yes, I think 20 or 30 years ago, I think Willem Dafoe would have been an amazing Joker. But now I think he's too old. I still see people going, no, he's not too old. I think he is. But I think back in the day, he would have been amazing. But as Jamie said, I wouldn't trade him for Jack Nicholson or anything.
No.
Next message here. Oh, it's from Aaron Chavez. It says, "Hey, Andy, Brendan, and possibly Jamie."
That is kind of how it's going now.
It starts.
This whole time warp thing.
It says, "I have a young son. I think DC should keep content for younger audiences on cable and regular TV so parents don't have to subscribe to DC Universe. I'm a DC fan, but if I wasn't, it may be hard for DC to get its content to younger audiences if the parents don't subscribe to the service. They should put way more young audience content on cable and free TV to grab the younger generation. When they get older, they can subscribe to DC Universe, or as teens, get their parents to subscribe so they can watch the programs for young adults. Keep up the great work, Aaron Chavez." Aaron, thank you for the message. I think it's a very valid point. I think that if parents aren't DC fans, then they're not going to subscribe to DC Universe for their kids. So I agree with you. I think Teen Titans Go or Batman the Animated Series or Super Friends and stuff, should still be available elsewhere because you need a gateway drug for the young fans. Jamie, having young children yourself, what do you think?
I think that point is totally valid. DC Universe obviously is leaning way more toward the mature audience than anything else right now. In fact, I'm anxiously awaiting to see the approach that they're going to take with Stargirl because Young Justice is essentially young adult, and everything else is mature content that's rolling off of their original content line. So, I mean, he makes a great point. Is there anything rolling out there for DC stuff other than Superhero Girls and Teen Titans Go right now that's not on the subscription service that I'm missing?
Not that I can think of, no.
What would you class the CW
There's
shows
the Lego
as?
Stuff.
I'm sorry.
Well, there's the CW stuff, of course. That's on CW.
Oh, yeah.
And then I was going to say there's a lot of Lego DC stuff that comes out, it seems like every couple months, and that stuff seems to hit Netflix. So I get the point. It makes sense.
Yeah.
And the DC CW stuff is, I would classify more as kind of and I'm not saying this as a slight against it. That's more like young adult level sort of stuff too.
Okay.
I let my kids watch all that stuff. Actually, I've kind of given up on most of it. I'm letting my son watch Swamp Thing with me because his tolerance for that sort of thing is way higher than my daughter's is. Like right now, my son's begging me to go see It Chapter 2. And my daughter's like, "Oh God, I don't want to see that." So.
All right. This next message is from Pastor Jasmine. It says, "Greetings, Bat Family. Would Daniel Stern, who played Marv in the Home Alone movies, have been a good Joker in 1989? He was one of the few actors rumored for the role." Interesting. Thanks for the message. Brendan, what do you think? Daniel Stern.
Well, for a start, I don't need to have explained to me who Daniel Stern is.
I mean, he's not like a household name.
No, I'm just, because I just grew up watching those movies a lot. And I would have said Daniel Stern from Bushwhacked.
Of course
no.
you would.
Yeah. No. There's
Jamie?
no other way to say it, really. No.
I don't want to discount him as an actor because I think he's quite good. I like him. I'm not like an uber fan or anything, but I dig him in most of the stuff I see him in. But honestly, I can't quite make that line. So I don't want to say no, but at the same time, I don't quite see it.
Yeah. First of all, I've never heard that rumor ever in 30 years. Number two, yeah, I think he's great, but do I think he would have been a good Joker? Not really. Not that I can think. He could have proved me wrong, but I don't see it.
Wouldn't he have been like late 20s or early 30s back then?
Probably.
Well, they have to be.
I don't know. Like, I kind of have a hard time believing that because they were going for A-list because they needed marketability.
They needed the draw card, yeah.
Yeah. So
wasn't that about the same year City Slickers happened?
Nope. City Slickers was 92?
Really?
I think so.
It was either 91 or 92.
Let's see how my recall is.
91.
City Slickers 91.
Yeah, I thought it was 91.
And he was born in 57, so he's older than I thought he was.
Yeah. I just can't imagine anyone's short list in 89 going Jack Nicholson, Robin Williams, or Daniel Stern. One of these things is not like the other.
They're not.
The next message here is from Austin. It says, "Hey, Bat Family, my name's Austin. I'm a longtime listener, first-time emailer. My question is in regards to Matt Reeves' The Batman. With all we know so far, it seems like the movie may have drawn some inspiration from the 2004 animated show of the same name. For example, we have a young Bruce Wayne early in his crime-fighting career and a massive pre-established rogues gallery. If Reeves has drawn inspiration from the show, what are some elements that you would personally like to see put into the movie? Personally, I enjoyed the Batsuit, Batmobile, and the closer relationship with Alfred. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts. All the best, Austin." Austin, great to hear from you. Brendan, since you are the biggest fan of the Batman, what do you think? Like, is there anything from that show that would make great inspiration for Matt Reeves?
That's a tricky one because the stuff that I really liked, the stuff that I really liked is the things that they did well in terms of how they were in the comics, like the Robin story, and I mean they did bring in Batgirl before Robin, which was actually kind of cool. The take on some of the villains is really cool. I did a really good Black Mask. Even the way they introduced Harley was different, but not. It was good as well. I don't know. Like in terms of things that I'd want to see pulled from live action movie, though, I'm not too sure. I mean, you could go the route where eventually I just keep thinking of like Batman versus Dracula, like that'd be interesting to see one day in sort of a noirish type film. I'm not saying that's what I think's going to happen, but I'm just thinking outside the square a little bit. Yeah, Alfred was really good in that show. That's a bit of a tricky question. I don't know. I never really thought of that version of Batman as being an inspiration for one of the movies. So it's kind of caught me off guard. I'd need to think about it a bit more, I think.
Okay, Jamie, any thoughts on this?
I've seen the Batman versus Dracula and that Halloween episode. Wasn't it that the Batman that we did with Grundy?
Grundy's Night?
Yeah. So I've seen those, so I don't know if I'm quite qualified to even make a comment on this. I'm just not familiar enough with the show to say anything.
Yeah. First of all, I don't think Matt Reeves is taking inspiration from the Batman TV show. Like,
No.
just because he's going with a younger Batman, like that's, I don't know. That's not specific enough for me to go, oh, it's like the Batman show. And yeah, I'm kind of with Brendan. Like there are things I really like about that show, but there was nothing in it that was like such a unique take that I'd go, oh, do that, you know? Like, so there's nothing that I can really think of. I mean, I guess the relationship between Bruce and Alfred, I'll agree with you on that, Austin. Like, because in this point in Batman's career, it really is just him and Alfred against the world, especially at the beginning of the show. I like that. But it's not like we haven't seen that before either. But yeah, I mean, I think that relationship is so important. I like the idea of exploring that further. Next message is from Stephen Marshall. It says, "Hey, Andy, Jamie, and hopefully Brendan. I've done a bit of research and I've read the script for Justice League Mortal. It's a project I'm fascinated by and wish it had happened. There were some amazing ideas for imagery in the film, such as a rebuilt Kent farm in the Fortress of Solitude, which was based off Kingdom Come. How do you guys feel about Justice League Mortal? Have you read the script? What about George Miller as a director? What do you think of the casting? And what do you think of the DC Films universe? Or do you think it would have been better if they had made this movie? Kind regards, Steven." And he did put the cast list here. Armie Hammer as Batman, DJ Catrona as Superman, Megan Gale as Wonder Woman, Adam Brody as The Flash, Hugh Case-Byrne as Martian Manhunter, Teresa Palmer as Talia al Ghul, Zoe Kazan as Iris Allen, Santiago Cabrera as Aquaman, Jay Baruchel as Maxwell Lord, Common as John Stewart Green Lantern, and Anton Yelchin as Wally West. Yeah, thoughts on this, Jamie?
From the small amount of details that I know of this film, I haven't read the script or anything yet. Yes, I certainly wish this would have happened. Casting-wise, I don't have any issues with anyone. I find Hugh Case-Byrne as Martian Manhunter to be the only head-scratcher, but, man, that guy's been good in anything I've seen him in. So, for those that don't know, he was Toe Cutter in the original Mad Max film, and he was also a Morton Joe in Mad Max Fury Road.
Weird.
Yeah. That's why I say, I mean, I can't quite make the line in my head that he would work in the part, but George Miller's brilliant, so I kind of have a hard time fighting against him on this. So I guess that answers the George Miller question too. I love the guy. I think he's fantastic. Jay Baruchel is Maxwell Lord. That's interesting. I haven't heard that one. I've never heard that. I'm not saying it's not accurate. I'm just saying that one.
No, that one is accurate because he's talked about
it.
Yeah, he has. He's actually publicly discussed it.
I don't have any issue with it. I just think that's again an interesting choice. Megan Gale, as far as like the physicality of Wonder Woman, was perfect. I would have loved to have seen this film. I mean, we do need to get around to reading the script. That's my fault. We keep brushing it under the rug because that's a time commitment for me to read a script, among all the other things I have going on in life. So we're going to get to it eventually, and I'm certainly looking forward to it. We just got to be able to make it work as far as timing.
Yeah.
I think the two big ones for me that I would have liked to see is Armie Hammer as Batman and Brody as the Flash. I mean, obviously he's aged out a bit now, but and he's in the Shazamily, but he'd still be quite a good Flash, I think. With the right material, but it's probably, like I said, the age thing. But yeah, it's one of those things. At the time, I'm glad it got shit canned because it was, for me, it was all about the Nolan trilogy, and it was the same. We were so close to the Dark Knight coming out and everything, so I didn't care at the time. I like the movies we've had. We've had this discussion so many times. So had they have done it, we probably wouldn't have gotten any of the films that we never would have got Henry Cavill's Superman. And even just that, to me, I probably would have sacrificed this movie just to get Cavill's Superman because I like Cavill in the role that much. But it's like anything. I'd love to have an alternative timeline to actually see what it looked like. It would have been a very bold move, particularly having two Batmen on the big screen at the same time, and this coming so soon after Superman Returns as well.
Yeah, I would have loved to have seen this movie. I was actually in, I guess it would have been like 2008 when it got killed.
Yeah, it was early
Maybe.
2008.
I feel like I was the only one who was bummed that it got killed. To the point where, like, I didn't mention it because all Batman fans were like, good. They shouldn't have been doing it anyway.
Really?
And it's just funny how the... Oh, yeah.
See, I had no idea this thing even existed until I think it was Brody was on Fat Man on Batman, was it? Talking about it? That was...
Maybe.
He was on an old show, I think it was like Smornings. Okay, it was something, a show that Kevin Smith did with Jen, and he was on that. And I think Kevin tacked it on to the end of an episode of Fat Man on Batman or something like that.
Okay. That was literally the first time I became aware that this thing even was a thing.
Oh, really?
So back in the day, I had no idea this was even going on. So I guess it's as big a surprise to me that fans were all about pissing on this thing. I mean, I guess I shouldn't be surprised that fans were pissing on something, but, you know.
But you need to take into account, too, at the time, no one knew who the hell Armie Hammer was.
That's true.
This
yes,
was before...
the cast was mostly a big question mark. Like, when the cast list came out, the only one I really knew was Adam Brody. And I was like, I like him.
Yeah.
But yeah, everyone else was like, who? And so I think that caused a lot of concern. You know, George Miller hadn't made a movie in a while, which that's always the case.
See, Megan Gale being cast as Wonder Woman was a big deal over here.
Okay. There was no excitement about this. There was just worry. And so when it got killed, all I saw was celebration. And I just think that it's funny 10 years later, now everybody's like, man, I would have liked to have seen that. So.
And I mean, it's post Fury Road and things like that. So, and what we were saying now, some of those cast members have become big stars in their own right. Probably Armie Hammer more than anyone. And, you know, he's a fan favorite to play Batman. But I think, hindsight's a big part of that.
Yeah, for sure.
I actually, almost as much as the concept and idea of George Miller making a Justice League movie, which still is, like, warms my heart, I would have liked to have seen the reaction of people seeing two cinematic Batman rolling essentially around the same time.
And that's why people weren't happy with it.
Yes, that's essentially a big reason it got killed was because Nolan was not happy about it.
No. That and the writer's strike.
Yeah, there was the writer's strike, but yeah, like they had costumes, they were building sets, they were all in Australia ready to shoot. Like, it was a go.
That's why you guys can't get DC Universe.
No,
Yeah,
come on
I
now.
hope you're very proud of
They
yourself.
filmed Aquaman here, my friend.
Anyway, let's move forward. Next one here is from Condor Zalander. It says Michael Jackson as a superhero. It says, hey guys, which superhero do you think Michael Jackson could have played? I always heard he wanted to play Luke Skywalker or Wolverine. Also, what's your favorite Michael Jackson song? Well, I've never heard the Luke Skywalker Wolverine thing, but I know that Michael Jackson just loved heroes and fantasy, and so I wouldn't be shocked that he would want to play a superhero. Who could he have played? Man, I mean, he kind of played a superhero with Captain EO, right? Mm-hmm. That was a superhero.
That was actually under construction when I was at Disney World the first time, so I've never seen it.
Oh, I'm sure you can find it on YouTube. It's fun. I love it. Oh man, like of superheroes we know, who could he have played? That is tough. Do you guys have any ideas?
Clayface?
Dude.
I hate you.
What?
You know what you did.
Yeah, no. And my favorite song is The Way You Make Me Feel. So there you go.
Okay, Jamie.
Dark Side? Does that count?
No? I don't think so.
I have no idea. I mean, he... like Blue Beetle keeps coming into my head as the only serious answer I can give, and I don't even know if that's the right answer.
The right answer, gentlemen, is Vibe.
Huh.
Okay. Favorite song?
Because
Thriller.
then he can just dance all the time.
There's two answers to the favorite song. There's Thriller and there's the wrong answer.
Oh. Well, both of your songs are excellent choices, but mine is Smooth Criminal. It's my favorite. All right. Next message is from Eric Carter. It says, "Hey, Bat Brothers. First of all, thanks for having me on the show. It was a blast. After watching Batman Hush, I started thinking about the shared animated universe. What do you think is the deciding factor between adapting a film straight from the comic or placing it into the continuity? Obviously, I know a film like Gotham by Gaslight can't be in continuity. However, they chose to make films like The Killing Joke and Batman and Harley standalone while putting Death of Superman and Hush in the shared universe. Which do you prefer when it comes to landmark stories? Now that we have Hush, which other Bat classics are you guys hoping for? Thanks in advance for your answers. Keep the Bat signals well lit. Your Bat brother, Eric Carter." Thanks, Eric, and it was good having you on the show.
Eric's a champ.
Jamie, any thoughts on in continuity versus out of continuity?
I don't know that I have a specific preference. I know a lot of people are kind of ticked off when it goes one way or the other. Honestly, I don't have a preference. Although I haven't seen Hush yet, and apparently this thing is really divisive. So I'm very curious to see it. But until it hits DC Universe, I won't, because money.
I'm doing the same thing. Don't worry.
Yeah. So I don't know. As far as like what I want to see them do next for classics, I mean, we've talked about this time and again. I'd love to see some sort of an adaptation of Long Halloween, but I don't know the correct way to do it unless, DC Universe decides to come along with it. Oh, here's an idea for you. Let me pitch this. Let them do stories like an animated Crisis on Infinite Earths or Long Halloween or Nightfall or something like that, where it's a long, I don't want to say drawn out, but you follow what I'm saying, like a really long form storytelling idea in an animated format and do it as a 30-minute per episode series.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to see that done as an adaptation that way. But I'm surprised we haven't really seen a Nightfall adaptation yet. I mean, they've got two versions of the Death of Superman. We've got no Nightfall. I find
that's very true. Yeah, that's really true. Brendan, what about you?
I don't know. I feel with some of I know Hush is a landmark title, but it's not like A Killing Joke that was its own thing, and Gotham by Gaslight, which was its own thing. Like, I know Killing Joke's kind of been retconned, but then it got Barbara. Actually, after the New 52, Barbara was still paralyzed, wasn't she? And then she got better or something. Am I remembering that correctly, or did they completely take?
New 52, she was not. She had recovered by that point.
Yes, but she was paralyzed previously, though.
Prior to that, I can't speak to it, but yes, because in the Gail Simone Batgirl run, it is referenced numerous times. So
okay, because and I think that's why they can do those sort of ones out of continuity. I mean, I did like it back in the day when each movie was its own thing. But in saying that, I've come round to the continuity movies. I don't dislike them. Not that I ever disliked them, but I've come around to the idea of it and just accepted that a lot of these movies are in the same continuity. I still don't love the aesthetic of a lot of it, but the stories themselves are really good. I don't know, it's something like the Long Halloween and everything. I think you're going to run into the same problem where I said this on a Batman fan site last week in a thread where it was sort of people were full on arguing about what's happened with Hush, and I kind of said on last week's episode too, spoiler free, if you like Gotham by Gaslight and can take that as a story that is in very much the same vein as the comic, but it's not a direct adaptation, then you won't have any problems with Hush. And I think if they do Long Halloween, it's probably going to be the same thing. And this is what I said in this thread is Batman Year One is one of my favorite Batman comics of all time. I love that comic. It is literally what got me back into comics in early 2005 in the lead up to Batman Begins. And I was so excited when they announced Year One was being made as an animated movie. I very rarely watch Batman Year One, and when I first saw the movie, I was just kind of like, huh, oh yeah. Like, I wasn't excited by it because it was literally panel for panel the comic brought to life. It was more a digital, like, what do they call them? Motion comic.
Motion comic?
Yeah, it was more.
Yeah.
It felt more like a motion comic than an animated movie, and I was kind of bored in it. And whereas the likes of Hush and everything, I was never bored, and it kept me, who knows that comic well, still guessing and things and not knowing where it was going to go, because it wasn't it's not the direct story from the page. And I don't have a problem with that, because I understand why, because I don't want to get, Death of Superman and Hush and all that and feel the same way that I did when I watched Year One back in 2011, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I think that honestly the way they choose is I think it's a question of like, okay, we want to adapt this. How easy would it be to put it in continuity? And if it's something where something really major happens that would contradict continuity or it would change continuity for the worse, let's just make it its own thing. So like you couldn't do Killing Joke, because if you put Killing Joke in continuity, that means now you're committing to that origin story. You can't follow up the ending of Killing Joke because it's ambiguous. So like you had to do it as its own thing. Whereas they looked at like Death of Superman and they're like, well, we've already got this run of incontinuity. There's no reason Superman can't die and be resurrected within continuity. So we can do that. Let's do that. So I think that that's probably how they decide. And then my preference, I kind of like things when they're their own. I did like that there was a line of continuity going, but I feel like it's gotten kind of muddy because it's been taking all of these weird side roads and tangents with Death of Superman and Teen Titans versus Justice League that are like in continuity, but did they need to be for any particular reason? Not really. So I kind of like the freedom that's allowed to them when they're just allowed to do a standalone little thing. But as for landmark stories, I totally agree with Jamie. I can't believe they haven't done Nightfall. Like, that's insane. And they could do that as a two-parter, the way they did Death of Superman. And then A Lonely Place of Dying would be great. I would love that.
Yeah, but how can you now?
Make it its own thing.
Oh, yeah, doing its own thing. Yeah, that's true.
Was that you guys that were talking last week about the DC Universe shorts and they're going to do Death in the Family?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, let's move on. This is from Miles. It says, at one point in Batman and Robin, Batman makes a joke. This is why Superman works alone, thus establishing Superman exists in the Joel Schumacher Batverse. What do you think that version of Superman is like? What's his relationship with Batman, and who could have played him? Does he too never leave home without a credit card? Does his suit have nipples, a codpiece? Is Metropolis also claustrophobic alley littered with enormous Gothic statues that serve no purpose? Does it suffer from the same bureaucratic mandates that Gotham does, dictating that all lights in the city must be neon? How does Superman deal with all the illegal late-night motorcycle races? So many unanswered questions.
Jesus Christ.
Thanks, Miles. Nice to hear from you. I don't know if we've ever heard from you before, but hey, you made me laugh. So yeah, if Superman existed in the Schumacher Batverse, what would he have been like and who would have played him? Let's just leave it at that. Keep it simple. Jamie, any thoughts?
He would have been absolute clown shoes. And who would have played him? Would it have mattered? It still would have been clown shoes.
I mean, I agree with that. Brendan, any thoughts?
Funny story. So back in 95 when I was 11 and obsessed with Batman Forever, I think I drew a picture of a Kilmer-style Batman teamed up with Dean Cain. Because Lois and Clark was huge at the time. So in my mind, I always wanted to see Val Kilmer's Batman and Dean Cain's Superman in the same universe. But as for Clooney, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. He would have been goofy and over the top and cartoony and super cheesy. And I'm trying to think of who would play super cheesy and over the top circa 1997. Maybe that would have been like George of the Jungle, Brendan Fraser.
Daniel Stern.
Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, so I'll go with goofy Brendan Fraser for that time.
That works. I actually kind of want to see that now. Thank you for that.
He allegedly auditioned for Superman at some point. I can't even remember which movie it was. I want to say it was maybe it could have been the J.J. Abrams one. And I love Brendan Fraser. I think he's wonderful. But if you think about like him as George of the Jungle, but in a Superman costume, I feel like that's a Schumacher Superman.
I wonder if he would have had the same vocabulary as he does in Doom Patrol.
I would hope that would.
We all know that no one says "what the f" like Brendan Fraser in Doom Patrol.
True. All right, this is from our pal Stuart from Guernsey. It says, I'm so hyped for Titans Season 2. I can't believe we're getting it as early as we are. I watched Season 1 several times now. It's become one of my favorite things ever. What are you looking forward to the most? Without a shadow of a doubt, it's one of my favorite characters making his appearance, Deathstroke. Also, seeing Dick become Nightwing. What was your favorite episode from Season 1? Mine was Jason Todd, even though it should have been called Robin's Reckoning. Anyway, I hope everything is going well in China. Stuart, good to hear from you. Jamie, Titan Season 2. What are you looking forward to most?
For me, it's actually a tie between Deathstroke and seeing Wonder Girl in action in costume.
Awesome. Brendan?
Yeah, I think just overall seeing some more characters come in, more heroes and stuff. I'm looking forward to that. Be nice to see a trailer.
Well, that would be nice. I agree, because it's like not just one thing, but they seem to really be exploding the world for Titan Season 2, because we're not just getting one new character. We're getting Superboy, Krypto, Aqualad, more Wonder Girl. We're going to get Deathstroke, Jericho, Ravager, and Bruce Wayne. Like, they're just completely going big, and I want it all. So,
do we know, is this a 10-episode order, or did they expand it for this season?
I don't know.
Well, we still technically need to see the finale of Season 1.
I wasn't going to open that door, but okay.
And someone pointed out on Twitter when Brendan and I talked about it, and I was like, "Oh my god!" And he's back in the Robin costume. And someone was like, "Well, it's a flashback." And I went, "Oh, of course it is. Duh. Yes. That makes perfect sense. That that picture would be a flashback." So, what can I say? I was in the moment and I was excited. Next message is from Patrick. It says, "Hey guys, I'm ready."
We didn't answer favorite episode.
Oh, it's Jason Todd and Dick Grayson teaming up. It's that one.
Yeah, it's that one.
Yeah, make it 3. What the hell? Because I can't give a better answer than that.
Perfect. All right, next message is from Patrick. It says, hey guys, I'm writing from Houston, Texas. You've turned me into a big fan of Holy BatCast very quickly, as I've only discovered it within the last couple months. I just had a couple things I wanted to ask. First, with the new Batman movie coming, what is your prediction of what the Batmobile will look like? What would you like to see? Second, I'm super excited to see the new live-action Batwoman show. However, I've been seeing a lot of negative reviews and a lot of complaints about certain Kate Kane lines, like, I'm not going to let a man take credit for a woman's work. What do you think can make the new series successful for not just 1 or 2 seasons, but for the long haul? Thanks for the response. Keep up the great work. Special request. Can Brendan please do the classic line and say, that's not enough?
No. That's not a knife. That's a knife.
Oh my God.
Anybody else just swoon when he said that?
Oh. I need a towel. Anyway, what was the question? Batmobile. I don't know what it'll look like, but I'm ready for a car. I'm done with the tanks. Give me a sleek car. Less is more as far as the Batmobile is concerned. I feel like they just keep getting more complicated, and I think going a little simpler would make for a much cooler Batmobile, as far as I'm concerned. And it will differentiate it from what we have seen for the past 30 years. Brendan?
Actually, yeah, second that. I love the Tumbler, and I do like the Affleck Batmobile, but yeah, I want to see more sleek. I want some fins again, man.
Heck yeah. Jamie?
I just hope Batman and Bruce Wayne drive the exact same car and nobody picks up on it.
Great.
Like in the serials.
Yeah, fact.
And then Batwoman. What do you think? I've seen positive reactions. I've seen negative reactions. It's called Batwoman, so I'm not going to be mad that Batwoman acknowledges that she's a woman.
Yeah. Weren't there similar bullshit things when Supergirl first hit as well?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because, we're in the bag. We're going to watch this stuff anyway, but they are wanting to sort of appeal to a female audience as well. So it is what it is. Like, I can't wait to watch it. Like, bring it on. I want to watch it now.
Yeah. Come on. So, yeah, I think that it's fine. Like, I don't know. I see no problem with them leaning into it, and I'm still there for day one. Jamie?
Look, if you're somehow offended, triggered, put off, or just generally not a fan of the idea that she's going to use lines like not going to let a man take credit for a woman's work, I got a real simple solution for you. Don't watch the effing show. I don't get why this is made such a big deal of, other than people on the internet just love to fight about any damn thing.
Yeah.
Me? I understand CW shows aren't everybody's favorite, and they are a lot of people's favorite. You know, it's a line that goes right down the middle with it. I'm looking forward to this show. I know it's probably going to have a stumble here or there because the CW shows often do, and you know what? That's okay. I would rather have a little bit of subpar content rear its head once in a while than not have any of the content at all. The fact that this even exists warms my blood, and I am definitely looking forward to this show. And you know what? If people like it, great. If they don't, great. Like what you like, dislike what you dislike. Don't apologize for either.
Boom, baby. And all of the CW shows took a little time to get their footing, and Batwoman will do the same. It's fine. Everybody relax. All right, next message from Patrick Johnson. It says, "Hey, Andy, Jamie, and the Thunder from Down Under."
You know it.
This is my follow-up to my Swamp Thing critique. As far as Louisiana weather goes, yes, I was exaggerating a bit because it does get cold, but not for very long. It always feels like we're roasting down here. One obvious issue I have with the show is if it's colder, as they're portraying, we should see cold breath from the actors. If it is visible, I haven't noticed. I read somewhere it's filmed in North Carolina. That's understandable for them wearing heavier clothing depending on the time of year. Yes, it is filmed in North Carolina. That was part of what possibly caused the shitstorm that got it canceled, possibly. It said about the accents, yes, Will Patton's voice is killing me. It's not subtle. The thing is, he seems to be the only one with it. Most people from Louisiana sound normal, or by normal, I mean just like you. There's a particular part in the state that sounds like that. Unfortunately, Hollywood seems to think people from Louisiana are either Cajun, rednecks, or Hicks, and that's not the case. Anyway, on to an actual Bat-related question. What do you think of the Batman 66 logo that Matt Reeves tweeted? Just trying to throw us off the scent, or there are some elements from the show he might be including? Speculation abounds. Thank you for some more facts around Louisiana. We talked about this briefly on the last episode. I think he was just having fun. I don't think he is saying anything, except maybe that it's going to be shot in color, which is great news.
Julian Chan tweeted that, and I thought that was really funny. He's like, yeah, Matt Reeves confirms the Batman will be filmed in color.
Well, here's the thing. Wasn't there a speculative rumor like a year and a half or whatever it was ago that he thought about shooting the movie in black and white because of the noir aspect? I don't think Matt Reeves himself ever came out and said that, but like somebody made that assumption. Well, if he's doing a noir film, is it possible this thing could be in black and white? I seem to remember that being a thing for a minute. I don't know.
That to me, that sounds more like fan wish list than anything.
Right. I'm not saying it was. You know how these freaking regurgitators and scoopers and everything else will run with anything right now. Just look at the whole cinematographer thing that happened a couple weeks ago.
Right.
I'm just saying. I don't think Reeves himself had anything to do with this. I just think that somehow that popped up, and like for a day or so, people were like, "Yeah, it's possible this movie could be in black and white." That's my recollection. I could be off on that. I don't know.
Yeah. I think Matt Reeves was just having fun because it was in response to someone saying, like, Matt Reeves, I can't wait to see, what you've got in store for us. And he just replied with that, being like, oh, it's going to be in color. I respect that he is not afraid to, like, play with the fans, I think that's cool.
I love it when the filmmakers do that. James Wan, even David Ayer, who, I'm not a big Ayer fan, but I appreciate the interaction he's taken with fans. Zack Snyder seems to have done that on Vero. I don't go on Vero. I don't need another freaking social media account, but he seems to be more active over there, which,
right.
Good on him for that, I guess. David Sandberg is really good about interacting with the fans. So I like it when guys do that instead of being like a borderline recluse.
Right. Totally. Next message from Eddie Bolton. It says, hey guys, Andy, I hope China's going well for you. These massive life changes are always a big leap, so kudos for taking it. Given that the question is one of my favorite characters, I've always wanted to see him on the big screen. Are you guys fans of The Faceless Detective, and could you see a live action outing work? Keep up the great work, Eddie from Dublin. First of all, Eddie, thank you for the kind words about my massive life change. I am taking it in stride and learning more every day. But it's going good. The question, Brendan?
Yep, love the question. Vic Sage question. I've got all the run of the Danny O'Neill comics. I love that character in Justice League Unlimited. I've been saying for years I am amazed he hasn't shown up like on one of the CW shows or something. Like, he'd be perfect in it. And I can't remember if we talked about it on here or not, but it was a couple of months ago now, Kevin Smith let slip that he was actually, him and who was it? Was it Belanti? I don't know. It was someone. They were working, this is years ago, they were actually hired to work on a Question show. But it died. And I was gutted to hear that because it would have been awesome to see the Question come to the small. I think he's probably more of a small screen character than a big screen character. But yeah, I would love to see a live action Question. Definitely.
First of all, I want to address the fact that Andy has Coke in China, so life is good. He's okay.
Yes. Yep.
He's had struggles finding other things like Taco Bell, but since there's Coke.
Yes. I have cherry Coke, and now I have a working coffee machine, so things are looking up.
China's caffeinated, baby. The question, I'm not I wouldn't consider myself a fan. I don't mind the Question. I think the character's fine. I never object when he shows up anyplace. Or her, in the case of, was it Montoya that became the Question for a minute?
Yeah.
52? Okay. I'm good without, either way. I will co-sign what Brendan said. I think he lends himself more to television series than to movie. But, if it popped up, a DC Universe show, a CW show, any of that stuff, I'd watch it. Yeah, sure.
I've been dressed as the Question for Halloween one year.
Oh, all right. Post that picture. I feel like I've seen it. That sounds familiar to me.
I've shown you before.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I feel like I've seen that already. Yeah, I think that the question is great. I would watch him in a show. I'd watch him in a movie. Yeah, I like what the guy said. The Question seems like a natural fit for like a DC Universe 10-episode series, because you could do it on a lower budget and it could be super stylized and noir and detective, and I think that would be great. If they made a movie though, of course I would still go, but yeah, I think there's a lot of potential there. I like him.
Could show up in Batwoman would be a good character in Batwoman, maybe. Yeah,
he could also pop up elsewhere. All right, we have one last one here. It says, hey, Holy BatCast family, I just saw a fan-made trailer of a version of Tim Burton's Batman and Robin. It featured Michael Keaton as Batman, Marlon Wayans as Robin, Winona Ryder as Batgirl, Johnny Depp as the Scarecrow, Helena Bonham Carter as Harley Quinn, Courtney Cox as Talia al Ghul, and Sean Connery as Ra's al Ghul. What if this was the actual Batman and Robin movie that we got? Alvin, thank you for the message. What say you, Jamie?
I'd watch that. I kind of like
Sounds a hell of a lot better than what we did get.
Yeah, I kind of like the idea of Sean Connery as Ra's. Although why a guy from the Middle East would have a Scottish accent is almost as big of a puzzle as why a guy from Spain would have a Scottish accent. No, nobody. I'm the only one here that's seen
Guy
Highlander.
from-
Kiss my ass. Go.
Oh no, he's Egyptian in Highlander.
Is he? I thought he was.
I want to say.
Why does Kurgan call him Spaniard, and why is his name Ramirez then?
No, you're right. Then what the heck was the Egypt thing? Like, I thought there was something about Egypt. I'm sorry. I think you're right. My bad. But it still took me a second to go, wait, what are you talking about? Okay, cool. Brendan, what about you?
I mean, yeah, it would have been weirdly interesting. But again, yeah, better than what we got, I guess.
It sounds like the most Tim Burton-y Batman and Robin, but fortunately, I like that. So I think that sounds awesome. I would be first in line for that movie, but alas, did not happen.
Honestly, the other than Connery, the biggest casting thing in there that triggered me was Helena Bonham Carter as Harley, because nobody does batshit crazy like she does.
That's true. That's true. She would kill it.
There was a fan-made trailer going around a couple of weeks ago. I think it was shared in Real Fans of the '89 Batman movie, but the trailer was done as it's sort of like a 1930s, 1940s movie, and it's brilliant. It's so well done.
I saw that. That was pretty cool.
It was really good.
All right. Well, there you go. We're closing the Wayne Manor mailbox. Good job, everyone. High fives all around. If you've got a message or a question for the Wayne Manor mailbox, you can send that to Holy BatCast at rf4rm.com. But that's where we're going to wrap up this episode, our kickoff of Batman Beyond. Woo! So, gentlemen, thank you as always for joining me. Jamie, if the folks at home want to follow you, please let them know where they can do so.
At BatRaider3960 on the tweets.
Sweet. Brendan, what about you?
You can follow me at Loey007, or you can follow my podcast, The Nightlight, at Nightlight Pod, thenightlight.podbean.com, or facebook.com/The Nightlight.
Excellent.
I'm back, baby.
He's back. I already told you guys where to follow me at the beginning of the show, but again, I do have a new show coming any day now, and a few of you were kind enough to reach out to inquire about it, and I will just say, just be patient another day or two, and then all will be revealed, so please keep an eye out for that.
Since we're plugging podcasts, I want to throw this out there for anybody who's a fan of the early days of the Real Fans for Real Movies podcast. Please rewind. The RF4RM Retro Show just did Roadhouse for the 30th anniversary. We got Jeff Connell out of retirement for it.
Oh, well, if there's any movie that would do it.
And then we reminded him that Police Academy turns 35 this year, and I think we've got a permanent seat for him on the show now after that. So,
oh, well, all right then. So anyway, yes, for everybody out there, please keep an eye out, and check out Brendan and Jamie's other ventures as well as mine. You know, I do Disorder, and we just recorded episode number 37, which is Tarzan. So we've got you covered for podcasts between the three of us. Anyway, thank you for downloading this podcast. Thank you for joining us. Please do subscribe to the show so you never miss an episode. Please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. And as Michael Keaton's Batman says, I want you to tell all your friends about me. I do think it's crazy that we have been around 5 years. Oh my God. And that we still get emails of like, hey, I just found you guys. It's crazy, but it's kind of cool. Please visit holybatcast.com. Please like our Holy BatCast page on Facebook. Follow Holy BatCast on Twitter or on Instagram, Holy BatCast. But that was it for this episode. On behalf of Jamie and Brendan, I've been Andy. This has been Holy BatCast, and we will see you next time. Same bat time, same bat channel.
Holy BatCast is brought to you by Real Fans for Real Movies. Remember, the thoughts and opinions shared by the participants are theirs and theirs alone, and do not represent the companies or organizations they happen to work for.
Mr. Wayne wants to offer you a job.
A job? It's not much, mind you.
I find that in my old age, I could use a part-time assistant. You know, a gopher. Go for this, go for that. An ally, as it were. Would you be interested?
Well, of course he would. Wouldn't you, honey? I mean, to work with someone as famous as Mr. Wayne.
Sure. I warn you, I can be a difficult taskmaster. I accept nothing short of excellence from all who work for me.
I think I can handle it.
Very good then, Mr. McGinnis. Welcome to my world.